From the dawn of man, indigenous people from every corner of the globe have spoken of things that have now been discounted as myth or legend. Things they saw, lived alongside by, were looked upon as deities or worshipped by gods. Things that present-day man refer to as entities, spirits, demons, cryptid creatures, extraterrestrials, and much more. But sadly, modern man, science and society has discounted what our ancestors spoke of as legend and myths. But there are those of us that know what the ancient ones spoke of is the truth. Those of us who are obsessed with finding out the truth. This search for answers brings us into the world of the unknown and unexplained. It brings us on the trail, in search of living legends. Please join us tonight in another part of our journey to find these answers and bring the truth out into the light. Welcome and thank you for listening.
Hey, welcome everyone to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fountain. I'm here with my brother, Mr. Nick Valente, and we've got an awesome guest for you tonight. Nick, what do we got going on?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And
awesome.
Today's April 13th, 2025.
Oh, you got me
Sunday.
Me tonight.
Yeah. I wanted to get that in there so people know which one we're on. Our guest tonight, back for a part two, is Angelique Benham. And Angelique is out there in good old Idaho right now. I won't tell you where in Idaho, but she's out there. And last time she was on, we were talking about her dogman experiences. This time around, we're going to go to Sasquatch and other little beings. And so how you doing, Ange?
Great. Fantastic. Actually, so happy to be back home again in North Idaho.
I bet. I don't blame you.
Yep. No, I know how you feel. I'm back here after being here for 10 years in my younger years, and I'm back in North Carolina now, and it's absolutely wonderful. And trying to get that guy right there to come down. So
I'll be down. It's just a matter of time.
Hopefully in this year,
Yep.
2025.
Yes, this year, hopefully. This is the year.
I'm setting up a little studio in this room that I'm in. I have an extra room. I have a couple extra rooms. And this way we'll be able to do a show side by side.
Exactly.
That would be great.
Yep. Absolutely.
Jay, you had a question for Ange about her Sasquatch stuff.
Yes. So, Ange, what age did you have your first experience with the forest people, Sasquatch, however you want to call them?
The first time that I knew for sure that that's what I had encountered was the year 2000. So it's been about 25 years ago. So it would.
Wow.
It would have been about 25.
25.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would have been older than that. I would have been closer to 30, but yeah. Can you hear me okay?
But yeah, you're more clear now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I had to wait for the Bluetooth to go off on my Jeep.
That's
sorry.
Okay.
I had to drive to a nearby town to try to get service today because it's a bright, beautiful, sunny day and no service. So I'm parked at a truck stop.
Yep. Same here. Bright, beautiful, sunny day and nice and warm. I'm sorry, Jay. Where Jay is 5 below zero.
Yeah, of course. Freezing.
Oh my gosh.
It'll get there as summer comes.
Yeah, in another couple months.
So 25 years ago, Ange, that was in Idaho where your first experience was with them?
Well, it was northeastern Washington, but it was right on the border of Canada and Idaho. So it was real close, within an hour of where I'm at in North Idaho.
Okay.
What was the setting like that where you saw them?
Well, I was kayaking with my family, and I happened to be cruising my kayak really close to the shore, like very close to the shore, just beyond the branches of the trees that hang over. And I came up on, from a distance, what I thought was an elder man, like a grandfather, and looking out over his two kids who were playing by the shore. And the two little boys were like 8 years old, and they were definitely like regular little boys. They were wearing like little swim trunks and stuff like that. So, but this grandpa that was sitting behind them was watching them carefully, like he was making sure that they were safe and didn't get in the water. And so I thought it was a grandpa, and I was aiming right towards him with my kayak and ended up coming about 8 feet away from him. When I got up close enough to him, I realized he was completely covered in hair, and
wow.
that he was a nudist. However, once I realized that he was naked and extremely hairy, I was trying not to, I didn't want to embarrass him, because he was so human looking that it didn't register that I was looking at somebody different than us. I thought I was seeing a man with hypertrichosis, a very, very big, very muscular man. Actually a very good looking man. He wasn't ugly by no means. He wasn't scary, wasn't ape-like. He really honestly looked like a human. He was a human. He was just covered completely in a very, very, very thick, dark, kind of silver-tipped hair that gave the illusion that he was wearing a turtleneck sweater and long sleeves on a 90-degree day. But when I got up next to him and I realized that he was covered in hair, I looked away because I didn't want to embarrass him by gawking at this man who obviously had this thing going on with his hair, body hair. But it didn't register with me. I had only had one frame of reference for Sasquatch, and that was the old Patterson Gimlin film from the late 1960s. So at the time that I saw him, I really didn't truly believe in Sasquatch. I had thought that maybe if there was, it was not anywhere near where I would be, some other place, and that if there was any, it would look like the Patterson Gimlin film. This man looked like a normal human being, other than the fact he was very, very, very big, very tall, extremely muscular, and I mean ripped. We're talking linebackers with their pads on wouldn't even have come close to how ripped this man was.
Wow.
And completely covered in hair. And it was probably, gosh, it's been over 25 years. I don't know how long the time frame was between when I saw him and when my curiosity got the best of me. And I ended up getting online. I was going to college at the time, and I got online, and back then it was AOL dial-up internet. You couldn't really find much of anything. And I found a forum chat room where you were supposed to fill out this kind of a template, and then you would submit it to this chat room full of people who were basically your peers, and then they would read it, and you would submit this, whatever it was, an anomaly. It could have been like the little people, it could have been Sasquatch, it could have been a ghost, it could have been, anything that is just paranormal or out of the ordinary, cryptid, that kind of thing. So I submitted it wanting to know if this person who was covered in all this hair, what the name of that disease was, because I kept thinking Barnum and Bailey, the wolf boy, just kept going into my head. And I kept going, this is what this man has, but I don't know of anybody in this area that has it. And this man was so big. And my frame of reference is that my dad was 6'6". So this person stood up and moved a branch out of his face. And when he did, I remember thinking, holy cow, he's got 2 feet on my dad. He's like 2 feet bigger than my dad. So it was more of a curiosity of gigantism and correlating with hypertrichosis. Either way, I was researching it, and people kept saying things like, oh, you saw a Sasquatch. And I was like, no, I didn't. I just saw a big hairy guy. No, I didn't. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It was just a big hairy guy. Well, I kind of gave up because I wasn't getting the answer that I wanted. And it wasn't too long after I gave up, shut the computer down, and just whatever, washed my hands of it, that I got a phone call. And back then they had those little, it was a caller ID box that you hooked to your landline, and it would have the name of the person that was calling you. Well, it came up U.S. government. Now, at the time that this happened, my brother worked in the U.S. government. My brother retired from working in the U.S. government, but at that time he had a top security and did a lot of things that he wasn't even allowed to tell us about. So when I saw U.S. government, I thought something happened to my brother. So I picked up the phone thinking that I was going to get the call, and this man goes, well, this is so-and-so from the Department of blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't even paying attention to who he said he was and what department he was in. I was waiting for the news.
Yeah.
And because I didn't hear from my brother very often, he's 9 years older than me, and he was over in Washington, D.C. and was doing a lot of government stuff. So it wasn't like I was hearing from him all the time. So when I got this U.S. government call, it was kind of scary. And so I wasn't paying attention when this guy told me who he was, but he goes out, I want to talk to you about the Sasquatch that you saw at Sullivan Lake. And I was like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see a Sasquatch. I just saw a big hairy guy. And it didn't register with me really what he was saying at first, because I was still waiting for the news. And he goes, I can't remember exactly what he said because it's been many years ago, but I remember him kind of halfway laughing, not really laughing, but more kind of scoffing a little bit and going, I want to talk to you about the Sasquatch that you saw at Sullivan Lake. Now, when he said that, excuse me, when he said that, it was like all the bells and whistles went off. And I immediately was like, I guess the carpet was taken out from underneath me, because at that point in time, that's when I just went, don't talk to this guy. Do not talk to this guy. Hang up, don't talk to him. And I immediately, like every hair on my body, every part of my being said, do not talk to this guy. And I remember I just said, I told you I just saw a big hairy guy. I didn't see a Sasquatch, and I hung up on him. Now, whether or not he had any nefarious, anything nefarious going on, I don't know. And to this day, I think now at my age now, I probably would have wanted to hear what he had to say. And if he was going to say anything that would be nefarious or whatever,
Yeah.
I would have wanted to hear what he had to say. But at that point in time, I went, nope, done, hang up, boom, and don't talk about it. Now, he did try calling back. When he tried calling back and I saw U.S. government, which was just like immediately after that, I went, nope, don't pick up. So I always watched for U.S. government before I would pick up. But that was the thing that finally opened my eyes and went, oh, maybe they are real. So I told my oldest son, who was starting into high school at that time, and he had told me, Mom, we all saw him too. We drove past, we kayaked past him, and later on, this happened where after I passed this man, and it was an all-day excursion. It was an all-day excursion on Sullivan Lake. It's a big lake, and it has a big mountain range on one side where it's total wilderness. It's where they used to feed the Rocky Mountain sheep back in the, I think it was the 1980s. So very wilderness. Nobody lives up there. And it was hours after I saw him, I caught up with one of the other people in our kayak group, and she goes, look, there's a hunter up there on the mountain. And I looked up, and sure enough, walking across the meadow on the top of this mountain, there he was, and he was walking basically side by side. I was down on the lake, he was up at the top, but he was staying right alongside me, and he would walk, and then he would look down, and he would walk, and he would look down. But from a distance, it looked like he was wearing like a long sleeve jacket and coat, pants, and he didn't look like he was covered in hair until you got up close to him. So that was my very first experience. And when I realized that that guy said the Sasquatch that you saw, my son had told me that at school, these guys, his friends, his buddies, had come across the BFRO. And they said, hey, there's this new group of researchers that research Bigfoot, and why don't you check them out, and see if they can help you. And so I did. And I filled out the template, and it was just very vague. I mean, at the time that I filled it out, I didn't really put a lot of information in it, but I just filled it out, just a short synopsis, sent it in, and immediately got a phone call from Mr. Mel Scahan. Mr. Mel Scahan happened to be at the time, worked for the BFRO, and he was the one that was vetting my story to make sure that I wasn't fibbing, And to this day, he and I are still really good friends. Him and his wife have mentored my family and I through this whole journey that we've been on. And he actually was featured on Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, and Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. And he's been featured on several documentaries since then. But a very dear friend of ours, and he was the one that actually talked to me and said, hey, yes, you did see one, and no, they don't all look like the Patterson-Gimlin film. A lot of them look just as human as you or I. They just are very big people, and they are covered in hair, and there's some scary ones and there's some very beautiful ones, which we've had since then. We have had many, many, many encounters that we're in an area that is a hot spot for a clan. And we have basically started kind of a research team. And it was basically done because we had so many people that were asking us, what to do. How do you get them to communicate? How do we talk to them? Whatever. And we eventually just said, hey, let's just go ahead and put this information out there as we're learning it. And we've had some fantastic interactions with them. And literally for the past 3 mornings, we've had encounters for 3 days straight, just
Wow.
literally right outside my son's yard. So it's been just a really enriching journey and really beautiful experience. I have learned so much about them from our own interactions that we no longer see them as any kind of an ape, any kind of animal. These are people. They're absolutely a tribe of people, and they have emotions. They have extreme intelligence. They have their own language. They have some fantastic abilities that we don't, or that we used to have, but let them go over eons and centuries. But some very, very beautiful experiences where they have been so kind and so surprisingly loving to our family that it just kind of blows your mind. It just absolutely blows your mind. But we have, my son has a page, and is it okay if I state what that page is? Okay.
Absolutely.
So my son has Legacy Discoveries in Search of the Truth that we started 3 years ago, when everything first started with the interacting, and he started documenting everything. And now it's progressed to the point where we literally play games with them, like literally play games with them. We'll roll dice, and then we'll get up the next morning and come out, and the dice will be rolled. Whether or not they know how to keep score, I don't know, but they have certain ways of letting us know that they've visited us, usually during the night while we're asleep, sometimes in broad daylight. Like this morning, the whole family got up and we went to church, and we were gone at church for just a couple hours and came back, and they had built this beautiful little twig structure on the picnic table in my son's yard, and had drawn little pictures on a chalkboard that he's got there with some sidewalk chalk and stuff. So they leave us little gifts. We've had little woven things braided that they've left us. They've given us agates and stones, and we even had a couple of times that one of us has been sick, and they've left us like roots and things that you go, I don't know what this is, and then you look it up and find out that it's a natural remedy for the ailment that one of us has.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, it's just been absolutely it's intriguing. And right now what we're working on is we're kind of working on language. We've come to the point where we're realizing that these stick structures that they build, and some of them are enormous. You'll find them out in the wilderness where they're 2 and 3 stories high. But some of these structures that you'll find out in the wilderness, they'll replicate in small form in twigs. So we see that exact same thing. And so we started documenting and keeping track of what it was that they were building. comparing it with other people on our team who travel. And one of the guys that was friends with our team traveled Europe this last year, and he found structures. So he was documenting and then sending them back to us, and we started realizing that some of these structures were identical to ones that he had found over in places like Spain and out at Austria and other places that he had found. And so we've been able to correlate some of these structures and little rocks, things that we've done that we just try. We just go, I'm just going to try this. So I bought a bag of little blue stones that you put in your fish tank, put a pile of them on there and just left them and went, okay, we'll see what they're going to do. We started noticing that they would take some of these stones and they would put them in the shape of different things that at first we were like, I don't understand what that is. So then my son took a photograph of it and Google searched it, and it turned out to be in the form of one of the constellations. So
oh
we
my
were
God.
like, okay, wow, that's something interesting. And that some of these stick structures as well were set to look like pictures. So what we would do is we would put the thought out, the intent. My son would draw a question on a chalkboard, and then he would just leave it there overnight, and we'd put in some gifts like little trinkets, little toys, little tiny things and stones in a abalone shell. And then that was kind of like our gifting bowl. And then they brought their own abalone shell one morning, and there was a smaller abalone shell sitting next to our big one that had a bunch of trinkets in it, and some of them were natural and some of them weren't. Like they even gave us a buffalo, a coin that had a buffalo on it, and it was a copper buffalo coin, but it's about this big, and I don't even know what it is, but we're all going, somebody somewhere's missing their coin.
Yeah.
Whoops, we have it now. They had a tomato plant that wasn't blooming, that they couldn't get to produce anything. Got up one morning and found this big, beautiful tomato sitting in the dirt at the bottom of the plant. And we're going, that plant didn't even try to produce fruit, but they took a tomato from somebody else's garden and put it in our plant. We're like, okay. They just, wow, every day is some new experience, some new thing that they do that we just go, we're not dealing with even, an intelligent raven and things like that. They'll do things. They'll gift people little trinkets and stuff like that. Ravens will do that. But when you're dealing with somebody that will draw pictures, you'll be thinking to yourself, man, I really like to have this, and then the very next day it shows up in the gifting bowl. That wasn't a raven, these are, and then you'll find the footprints too. That's another thing too that my son did that we tried as an experiment, and it worked. He got a big old Tupperware tote from Walmart that you would, pack your clothes in or whatever. Yep. And he filled it about that deep full of cooking flour, leveled it off, put the lid on it, and then just asked them, would you leave your footprint in here for us? And then he would stamp his foot in it to kind of show them what he was doing. There'd be a footprint the next day.
Wow.
There were prints, there were heel prints. And what we started noticing was that my son would draw little pictures on the chalkboard of what he wanted them to do, and then they would do it. And here we'd find these handprints that were like this big, footprints that were, 19 inches. I mean,
Wow.
it was absolutely amazing. This went all through last summer, and then it kind of faded off during the winter. We did get one handprint during the snow where they printed a handprint in the snow. And my son did get a cast of it, but it's really hard to cast a snow,
Snow, yeah.
powder snow print.
Tell me
But
about it. Yeah.
he did get a cast of it.
Wow.
But then they kind of left for a while, for a couple of months. They would show up periodically, like for one little visit. They would leave something, or they would just leave a little structure on the table, and then you wouldn't hear from them for the next month or so.
Right.
And then now they're back. So 3 days now in a row we've gotten, they've been there for 3 days in a row now. And I can tell you that Legacy Discoveries works very, very hard to not present anything that could possibly be an untruth. We won't post it if it's questionable. We won't post it if there's any doubt that it could have been, say, a neighbor sneaking through the trees. We've got cameras set up all the way around that property. And those cameras are facing the only entrances in and entrances out of that property. They get in and get out sometimes in broad daylight. And
wow.
like today, we went to church, and when we came back from church, there was the stick structure, and they had marked on the chalkboard. So I myself, this is my son's house. It's not my house. It's my son's house. They're living in an old cabin while they're saving up and getting things so that they can build the big house. So they're just fixing up an old cabin. And I'm one of those people where if I think somebody could be fibbing, like maybe somebody is sneaking in, I will stay up the whole night. I will be like watching out the window to see if anybody is sneaking in, keeping my eyes on the cameras and the monitors, going, okay, every one of us are accounted for. Everybody's asleep in their beds. Nobody has walked past to go outside, just maybe sneak it really quick, build something really quick, and then sneak back in. No, I've been there and going, we're all accounted for. There isn't anybody that can get in. Plus, there's also 3 very big dogs, 2 little dogs. And the dogs will alert, but when you go and look in the cameras, it's not showing up. There's nothing showing up. And then you go back, and there it is, sitting there on the table, and you're like, there's no way. They have abilities that we don't. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But if you are curious and you want to look at day by day the things that have been happening, look up Legacy Discoveries in Search of the Truth. We have 2 Facebook pages, and he has a YouTube channel that he tries to post the videos on to show step by step of everything that he finds. So, yeah.
Great.
And I wanted to ask you about the first time, when you were in the kayak and you saw that hairy man. You said there was 2 little ones with him.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Did you see any? Do you remember seeing anything more of them, or were you concentrated just on the one big guy?
No, when I saw them from a distance, I was it was kind of at a neck it was a swimming hole, and they were across the swimming hole on the wilderness side, and there was an old rope swing. Now, this is Sullivan Lake. Is it okay if I talk about somebody else's channel just for a second? Is it okay?
Sure.
Okay, so Sibylla Irwin did she did a sketch, and she has a show called Sketching Encounters.
Right.
And she had me on there where she was able to map out and show where it had happened step by step. And I mean, I would love to be able to tell you all step by step, but I don't want to use up your whole show tonight by talking
No, that's
about,
okay. Go ahead.
But when I saw them from a distance, it looked like Grandpa was sitting behind two little boys while they were playing at the water's edge, watching out for them, taking care of them, making sure they didn't fall in. When I was kayaking towards them, the two little boys got up and left the water's edge, and went back down the pathway. So they left him and he stayed. Who those little boys were, I don't know. And to this day, I don't even know if they even knew that he was sitting behind them. But his whole demeanor was like he was making sure that those little boys were not going to fall in. He had a very grandfatherly, protective look about the way that he presented himself.
Oh, I understand now. I
Yeah.
thought
Me too.
I thought maybe the little boys were connected with him and
Me too.
playing.
Maybe they were.
So actually,
Maybe
they were human little boys then.
Yes, they were.
And they were not aware that he was standing there.
I don't know if they were or not. I assumed from a distance that they were part of the family, but
Yeah.
I don't recall 25 years later, I don't recall if they ever turned around and acknowledged him, looked at him, or talked to him. I just remember he sat behind them on like a stump, and they were playing at the water's edge with their backs to him while they were playing. When they got up and left, he stayed on the stump, and that's when I kayaked past him. So it was, but I have no idea. And I have no idea if they saw him, if they knew him. I know nothing about what those little boys, how they were connected to him, but they were wearing, one of them was wearing red, like basketball shorts, and the other one was wearing like yellow or blue, but they were definitely wearing bathing suits. They weren't covered in hair. He wasn't wearing any suit and was covered in hair.
How so you said he was about 2 feet taller than your dad, right? So he was probably at least 8.5 feet.
At least. He was enormous. He was enormous. And his shoulders had to have been probably 4 feet across, but his biceps were like, I mean, he was perfectly proportionate. He wasn't built like a freak. He was built like this guy was ripped, but that was just him. It wasn't like he was a weightlifter. He looked like he was just extremely muscly and built like a Mack truck. He was huge. He was huge.
Built for its environment, right?
Yeah. I guess. But I mean,
yeah.
When I've gone back and I go back to Sullivan Lake periodically, when I go back to that area and I look at the steepness of the hill to where the meadow is that he was walking across, from a distance, from a huge distance, he made it look like he was just out for a Sunday stroll. He didn't look like he was struggling or anything. And he just walked along and he'd look down and then he'd walk along and then he'd look down, and he was staying right beside me. And I was clear down on the lake. He was clear up at the top. and he literally walked parallel with me until he dropped down to the other side and went into the trees. And then when I got into the trees myself, where I was kayaking at the far end of the lake, I never saw him again. I never saw him again, but it was almost like I knew he was still there just because he was keeping up with me the whole day. I mean, this was hours. So,
wow.
yeah, I mean, it was a full day's excursion, and he was there the
Wow.
whole time. So,
That's incredible. That's unreal. How much did you say he weighed, Ange?
if I were to judge him with the density of us,
Yep.
because depending on what their muscle structure is and their bone density, which I don't know,
Right.
but I can
Yeah,
tell
the
from the
bone density.
imprints, they're a whole heck of a lot heavier than we are.
Much heavier.
If I were to judge him as if he was one of us, I would say he was probably at least 500 pounds with our density.
Right.
Looking, and after, from what I know about them, even their children who are, we have little kids, we have their little kids that come into the property and leave little itty bitty footprints, but their footprints leave an imprint that I can't do, and I'm 125 pounds.
Right.
My son can't do, and he's 140. So
right.
we're looking at whatever their density, their bone density, I think is heavier, quite a bit heavier than ours.
I do too. Yeah.
I would guessing he was over, probably close to 1,000, if not more.
Yeah.
Just because of thinking that they're different than we are.
Right.
In the density part.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is generally 200 pounds for every half-inch indentation in the ground. So if you could have seen it, if he had like, a good inch and a half indentation, that'd be about, about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh,
Massive.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last time, Nick, and I always say this. I think people underestimate their weight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
People, so.
Yeah, I mean, the bone density, the thickness.
Yep.
I mean, just to carry an 8.5-foot frame,
Oh
the
my
thickness
God.
must be enormous. And I mean, like if you've ever been to a museum and seen like the bones of a bear,
Yes.
a polar bear or
Yeah.
a black or a brown bear, you see, I mean, the things are super thick. So I
Yeah.
can imagine on a Sasquatch what it would be like.
Oh yeah.
No.
My
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, couple that with strength, and you're dealing
No.
with somebody that's amazing. I have one of our people that we have submitted some of their encounters with us, and I don't have permission to be able to state
Right.
who they are or really what it entailed, but they showed us a video of that they got, and it was 100% legit, of one throwing deer in a big pile like you would throw nothing, like you would throw a sack of garbage. I mean, literally, like one handing it like it was nothing and going, holy cow. So there's if and that is just, that was her video of what she saw. There was much more to it that, like I said, I'm not at liberty to be able to say, but
Right.
it if that's just somebody that that's just like an everyday life for them, you're going,
Right.
they could probably pick up a Mack truck and it
Without
wouldn't
a doubt. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
like a gorilla can grab a truck tire and squeeze it like an accordion. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
Jay, I think you told me about a story where a Sasquatch broke the back of a moose, a bull
Yes,
moose.
Yeah.
lifted its front antlers up and snapped the
Mm-hmm.
spine.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're
That's
talking enormous strength here.
Yeah.
and think of how strong a moose is. You had a 2,000 pound bull moose, and
Uh,
this thing threw it around like a rag doll and snapped its neck.
Yeah.
You,
Absolutely. I
you know,
100%, I believe you 100%.
yeah,
We had one that gifted two of myself and one other team member. We were hiking and we had them gift us a deer, and we were like, ah,
really.
um we can't keep this. It's not hunting season and it's a doe. But I'm one of those kids, okay, that had to poke everything with a stick when I, so
Yeah,
we were headed down the pathway and heard tree not tree knocks, but like rock clanking. And we knew that they were in the area. It's a place that they frequent all the time. And we go in there and we've had encounters with them and interactions with them. So we went in there early one morning, before anybody could get there, because it is somewhat an area that people do hike, and periodically you will see other people hiking up there. But this is a trail that that people wouldn't be taking first thing in the morning. Well, we just took it first thing in the morning, and we heard these rock clankings. And so I stopped because we've come to the point where we've realized, for us, at least the clan that we work with, that when they clank rocks together, they want you to stop where you're at and don't come any closer. Either they've
oh,
got
okay.
children there, they've got something going on ahead of you, there's a situation they don't want you involved in. So they clank these rocks together and you stop what you're doing and you wait. So that's what we did. And then we will go, okay, when we're ready, when we no longer get the rock clanks, we'll wait around for, at that point in time, we waited for about an hour. And
Wow.
when we finally kind of got the, I guess you can say, the okay, the all clear, we went ahead and started hiking again. And lo and behold, in the pathway ahead of us was this doe that was laid across the path. And the only thing wrong with her, and I rolled her over, she hadn't even gotten rigor mortis yet. She was still warm to the touch. The only thing that was
Wow.
wrong with her was her neck was completely snapped.
Snapped, yeah.
Nothing
Wow.
else around. I literally, because at first I thought mountain lion, check for tooth marks on the back of their neck, their necks, look for rakes, look for puncture
Yeah.
wounds, anything. And I had Tanya watch my back because I was like, make sure you watch behind me in case something comes up,
All
And
right.
I rolled her over and I literally felt her body. And the only thing wrong with her was a snapped neck. And that's when we kind of went, and she was set in the trail so, um,
Perfectly.
so blatantly. We knew then
Right.
that it was kind of like, here you go, here's your
Right.
present. And we're like, we can't take it, but thank you. And then later on, further on down, there was a rabbit that had its head removed and it was set in
Ah.
the trail. And we're like, we must look hungry because we were like, they're giving us these gifts, but yeah, I mean, the thought of breaking the neck of a doe, even,
Yeah, yeah.
that's crazy strength. That's
I
crazy
couldn't
strength.
do it.
No,
I couldn't do it
no,
if my life depended on it. I couldn't grab a
no,
deer and snap its neck.
no,
No way.
no, no. They're amazing. They're amazing people. Um, but absolutely people. And that's one of the things that we're trying to help people understand and try to teach, because we are guest speakers a lot at different symposiums. This is one of the things that we do. We bring out all the things that they've gifted us, the footprints, the handprints, the answers to our questions that we have on the chalkboard. And one of the things that is really touching is that when we gift a present to them and they take it, sometimes they bring it back. And they bring it back if they think that it's something that means a lot to you.
Okay.
We've actually had them, we've gifted them crosses. We've gifted them things that were special to us, trinkets, but we kind of go, you know what? We're gifting this to you. We want you to have this. A lot of times they'll take it and they'll gift us something of equal value, or they'll gift it back to us. And one of the fun things that they do is, if it's something that can be tied in a tree, they will tie trinkets all over the trees in the yard, where you walk out and you're like, there's something up in the tree, and then you get like the binoculars and you're looking way up in the tree, and it happens to be a Christmas ornament that's braided into the tree.
Wow.
I just recently gifted a little ornament that I had for years and years, and it was a little bass. It was a little plastic bass that I did for Christmas ornaments. I had my Christmas tree was just full of like fish and wildlife and stuff like that, and these little ornaments and stuff. I gifted him a fish, and sure enough, we found it about 12 feet up the tree.
Wow.
Braided in. They'll take loose bark that's soft and supple, and they'll make plates out of it and braids, and they braided it into the tree. So
wow.
It looks like a Christmas tree in the yard. There's so many trinkets that are in there that we just go, man, I don't even know where you got some of these. They must have come from the neighbors or from somebody down the road. Somebody else. Yeah. I mean, it's, we just kind of go, okay, and hope that it's not something so important that if a neighbor stops by, we get accused of stealing it. But
it's in your tree, and they see it.
It's in our tree. Yeah. So, but yeah, but they're up too high to be able to get on a ladder and put it. There's just no way. There's just no way. And nobody can figure out the braid either, because it's not like a 3-strand braid like a normal braid would be. It's like knotted and braided and knotted. It's almost like a macrame of some kind.
Wow.
It's really advanced. But
that's incredible.
It's a higher form of intelligence on their part.
That's right.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks you're a bunch of cryptid animals out there running around, and also there's a thought that they don't just disappear into the woods, that they're using some sort of teleportation or interdimensional walkways to go from one part to another.
Yeah.
Because I've been out in the field with the teams, and we found Squatch prints, and they've just disappeared. And it's like, well, where did they go? And it's like, and I've said many times on shows, scientists throughout the world have said that there are 11 different dimensions. So who's to say they can't dimension hop? It's just one form of thinking, but how do they do it? How do they do it? How do they sneak up on you so easily?
I know that
you don't know about it.
You and I have talked a couple of years ago, Nick, about that time that Tanya and I accidentally got lost in the woods. And when we found our way back, it was hours and hours later, and we were miles. Somehow, that was a strange situation that we both still can't wrap our head around. We were gone long enough that we were exhausted, we were tired, we were hungry, we were thirsty. and yet only 25 minutes passed. It was the weirdest
That is
thing.
the
And I got
craziest
a hold
thing.
of Nick because you were talking about portals, and I was like, hey, explain to me about this portal thing, because I think we just ended up in one. But it did. Tanya and I had gone into a 10-acre parcel where we had encounters with the forest people. In fact, that's how I met the one that we refer to as grandmother, the mother of a young baby and a teenage daughter. It's where I had my first visual of her. It's a 10-acre parcel full of trees, not super dense. I mean, you can see probably 25 yards in all directions. It's been logged and it's flat. Now, there was a game trail that led from where I saw grandmother through the woods to this one really bizarre tree that it had been it was a double top tree that had been perfectly pulled down,
Right.
and on both sides, and then anchored at the edge to hold it down by 2 other trees, which that would not happen. Sorry, it doesn't happen naturally.
No,
And
no
it
way.
wasn't. Yeah. So we called it well, we actually called it the W tree because it kind of sort of resembled a W. But that game trail was so well used to that tree that I went there probably 3 or 4 times by myself. And I would go to the tree and I would just check it out. I found hair, that kind of thing. And then I would just turn around and follow that game trail, and it would lead right to where my Jeep was. And Tanya and I did that. We went there, followed the same game trail that I knew like the back of my hand, went to that tree, did a little bit of some research, took some photos and stuff, and then turned around and came back down that same identical game trail, got to where my Jeep should be, where the road was at, no Jeep. And we're like,
Wow.
what? And, and I'm going, somebody took my Jeep. And I'm like, well, I got the keys with me. What the heck, We're scrambling around, and it's powdered dirt on the road because it's a dirt road, powdered dirt. And so I told her, I said, let's look for my tracks, for my tire tracks for the Jeep. Powder was completely untouched. There was no rig, there was no tracks going in, going out of any vehicle. And we went, what the heck? And so I told her, I said, we need to follow the game trail back to the tree, the W tree. And when we got there, we went, okay, let's stop for a minute and then retrace our own footprints back to the Jeep. So we went to the Wendigo tree, or the W tree. We went to the tree, found our tracks, followed them back to where the Jeep should be. No Jeep.
Oh
We're
my
like,
God.
what the heck? No, not even an old print from somebody else's vehicle, like somebody had driven there and drove off with my Jeep.
Yeah.
There were no tire tread marks in the powdered dirt. Nobody had been in there for a long time. So I said, okay, let's stick to the road. We followed the road, and somehow on that road, we're walking and walking and walking, and we get to this enormous meadow. Now, I had been all the way around this 10-acre parcel. I can't tell you how many times. We found this enormous meadow that I didn't know existed. And we're like, where did this meadow come from? Don't go into the meadow. We got to turn around and follow our footprints back. We're literally tracking ourselves to get out of this parcel. Finally, we get to the road and we're walking, and I said, okay, now we can see tire tread. Let's follow the tire tread. Worst comes to worst, we just follow it out of here until we get to where we know the road, and then we'll turn around and walk back after dark. Now, we're in an area where there is dogmen. There is dogmen in this area. We've found their prints. We've had visuals in that area. We did not want to be in this 10-acre parcel or near this 10-acre parcel after dark. We were getting freaked out because the sun was going down and we were not looking forward to walking through here after dark. We followed the tread, and as we're following the tread, then I'm realizing, wait a second, now I know where we're at. I recognize that, and that. My Jeep is like 3 miles in that direction.
Wow.
And she's going, you're right. And so here we are hiking down the road, following the tread of my Jeep down this old logging road. And when we finally find it, the sun had gone down, but I mean, it was still light. It just, the sun had set. And we were going, holy cow, we were miles from where we normally are. We were hungry, we were thirsty, we were exhausted, and we got in my Jeep, turned the key on. 25 minutes had passed, and we were going,
wow,
how did this happen? How did this happen? You know, the sun had set, which we did get there late in the afternoon, but we were going, how did this happen? There was no other way to go in and out of that meadow. If you followed that one game trail in and followed that one game trail back, there were no other game trails. Now, my son, the one who has Legacy Discoveries, he's the one that was in Special Forces and the Navy. And he was and he told me, he goes, Mom, we're going back in there. And I'm like, we're taking survival gear. We're taking a bug out bag and we're taking survival gear, but we're not going in there unarmed, and we're not going in there like Tanya and I did. So I took a roll of, and I don't have it with me right now. Normally in my Jeep, I keep a roll of bright pink logging tape.
Yeah.
And I said, we're walking in there, we're going to tie off probably every 12 feet or so. We're just going to tie off like a fence post all the way through the woods to where we get to the W tree. And we did. And we made sure we'd stop, turn around periodically, and make sure we could see all the way down the line those pink tapes. We got in there. And my son's like, okay, now show me what you did. And I said, this is what we did. And I turned around, and we still, because it was literally just like a day or two later, we still had Tanya and I's footprints that you could still see. And so I said, look, we'll follow Tanya and I's footprints. So we turned around, we followed them, went right back to the Jeep. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I told him, I said, okay, what's the time? So he checked the time, and almost 3 hours had passed.
Holy
that he
shit.
and I just going to that W tree, walking around it, following our prints, and going back to my Jeep again. It was about 3 hours. Then he said, okay, Mom, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go really slow and take me to where your footprints met the road when you realized where you were at. Okay, so we got in my Jeep and we just chuckled along at an idle till we found the spot where Tanya and I came out of the woods. Where we came out of the woods was across the road and about 2 miles down the road.
Wow.
Where we came out of the woods. Now, in that 10-acre parcel, there's a road that goes past it, in front of it, behind it, and beside it. It's blocked in by logging roads. You can't cross the road.
Right.
You can't get into a different parcel without crossing the road. And Tanya and I had not crossed the road, but we came out of a different parcel. And it was literally only 20 minutes later.
Angela, looks like at that W tree, that was a marking for them. That's what it sounds like from my research anyway. It looks like that was a just a local transport portal that you guys went through. A very gentle way of transporting from one section to another, and you came out another section. Not an interdimensional portal,
Right.
because from research that I've done, it says that yeah, you actually know you did something. When you go into the regular portals, you went through
Yeah.
a local transport portal, and it's phenomenal that you found your way back.
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a marking. That W tree is definitely a marking. Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
and Jay,
wicked.
no, regular people can't do that. I don't care how many
No,
ropes I have in trucks. I'm not going to be able to
no,
bend a tree down.
no way.
It's just amazing.
It
Well,
is.
I want you guys to think about, and I tell the other people on my team too, if this happened to Tanya and she and I both have had experience tracking, and we didn't think to look at our own footprints to find our
Hmm.
way back,
Oh, forget it.
we would have been in that area after dark, and you do not
Absolutely.
want to be in that area after dark. There are dogmen in that area. In fact,
Yeah.
a lot. So we were actually kind of halfway scared. But if we hadn't have looked down and followed our own tracks, where would we have been? Would we have just been
Yeah.
meandering
That's
aimlessly
what
in the
you
dark?
probably would have done. Yeah.
That's probably, yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
lucky
Wow.
that you went back to the trees.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah.
Hey,
wild.
we're all out of time here, unfortunately.
Yeah, that sucks. But Ange, thank
Right.
you for coming on again.
Andrew,
Well, thank you.
we may in the future need to call upon you for a part 3.
Absolutely. That was amazing.
Well,
That was
as we're
amazing.
going along, we're having more and more stuff happen all the time. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so hang on
Awesome.
after this closes out, and then we'll just chat for a couple seconds.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and God bless. Be good to each other, and we will be back next week with another. Or no, next 2 weeks. Next weekend's Easter Sunday. Forgot all about
Easter,
that.
we're off.
Yeah.
We'll be back on the 27th, guys, with a great guest for you.
Good night,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Take care.